This is the Social Factor.
Alright guys, welcome back to the Social Factor. David is here with me. He's just in the other room right now taking care of something. So you guys are going to get me for just a second here. I said that wrong. It's just going to be me talking for just a second. So last week we talked about the paranormal and the scientific side of it. Now we're going to be talking about the spiritual side of the paranormal today. And what that is, if you'll excuse me just a second, I have to shut the door. Okay. Ooh. Okay. I apologize for that. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the spiritual side of the paranormal today. Like I said, David will join us shortly. So the scientific side of the paranormal is what we talked about last week. That would be the evidence such as EVPs, EMF readings, and research. And we're going to I want to touch base on one more thing in the scientific side of the paranormal, and then we will get to the the spiritual side of the paranormal, because that's where psychic abilities come in, and David does have psychic abilities, so we're going to talk about that too. So the scientific side of the paranormal is the side that is leaned on for actual proof. This includes capturing events on our equipment such as the DVR system or voice recorder or even the digital camera. That would be, the scientific side of the paranormal also includes research. So doing the research. So one of the things that comes with every investigation is research. That includes going to the Register of Deeds, local historical society, library, etc. to gather history on property that you're investigating. Why do we do research? Well, research helps us figure out what may be going on the property. So say the property has a bit of a dark history. The history could help explain why strange things may be going on at a location. I like to think of it as the WHW of research. It's where, how, and when did each person that ever lived there die. It might not necessarily have anything to do with somebody that had previously died at the property, but it's always a good idea to actually get that information. So, as far as the scientific side of the paranormal, that's pretty much it. Let's see here. Now we go into the spiritual side of the paranormal. So, psychic abilities. Psychic abilities are what we call abilities beyond the physical sense. They're rare gifts that people are given that cannot be 100% proven. They're just there. Oops. There we go. As interesting as the spiritual side of the paranormal is, we cannot use it as evidence. We can use our abilities to help us with a case, but our team has a strict policy. Our final results for a case, they do have to be based on actual solid evidence. It's very rare. Psychic abilities are very rare. All people are in a sense, are kind of born with it. That's a theory. But it's very rare to unlock. A theory is that a traumatic event, some sort of a traumatic event is what is believed to unlock these abilities. So, as far as types of psychic abilities, there is stuff like the radio show.
You started without me?
I'm only at the beginning of it. Coming?
Can you pause it?
Why? David is here with me now.
I feel so cheated on.
What? I literally am only at this part right now.
Okay. Well, just letting you know, letting the listeners know also, I worked on your puppy.
Yeah.
Okay, on Charlie. And I figured out exactly the location that he's injured in.
Where?
It's not actually his foot. It's right... I'm trying to remember now. It's like right above the knee.
Okay.
And there's a lot of muscle there, but there's also bone. So
he has a fracture, doesn't he?
I don't think he has a fracture. But I'll tell you one thing. He almost looked like he wanted to bite me. And Steph. He was getting really aggressive. And you know how I do my energy. I mean, I wasn't even touching him, and he was like... At one point, I'd be over that area, and he'd just...
So what do you sense it is?
Like a really bad sprain.
Okay.
Okay. Because it doesn't seem like he's got a... I think you need to take him in anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, and just in case I'm wrong. But I think he either that or he tore a ligament.
Okay.
And that would definitely require surgery.
Okay.
So...
Like I said, we got, insurance for that. So.
Thank God.
Yeah. Anyway, apologies to the very odd start to the show.
Because you cheated.
No, my dog, he got injured about 2 weeks ago. My fiance was coming home from work, and he got so excited that he ran like fastest I've ever seen him run. And that's because I got him like really excited because it's so cute when he gets super excited because he runs everywhere.
So it's your fault, isn't it?
And I made him run a bit. I got him to run a bit too fast. I got him a little too excited, and he ran into the bedroom. And Steph always lays down on the bed for a few minutes after she gets done with work just to relax a bit. And anyway, so he darted from the living room to the bed in like seconds, in like a second, and he dove onto the bed, and then right when he jumped onto the bed, he laid down and he howled out like he was injured or something, like he was in pain.
And it could be a tear, as I said.
Yeah, and anyway, David worked on him already once before. And, saw that it was probably a tear in the muscle. And, Charlie is getting a lot better. He, at first, when it happened, he couldn't move at all. He, didn't want to move. We actually had to pick him up and stuff. Now, he can walk the same speed. He can walk, like...
And that was after the first time I worked there.
Yeah, he can walk the same speed. However, and he can walk down stuff, and he can climb up some very small inclines like a curb or something. However, he cannot climb up long distances like the stairs yet, like he used to be able to do. He cannot do that yet, and he still does not want to put like any pressure really on one of his hind legs.
Well, the hind leg is actually the injured area, the one that I worked on.
Right.
After we're done with the show, I'll show you exactly what it's located. And I want you to observe your dog.
Okay.
It'll be fun.
Anyway, so David was working on him again previously because we wanted to see if there was maybe something stuck in his foot like that he may have stepped in outside, like a piece of glass or something sharp. But we didn't find anything, so David was just working on him. And what I mean by David was working on him, he'll explain that in a little bit.
Sure.
But David was working on him, and I didn't really want to start the show too late. So, because we were already about 10 minutes late-ish.
Yep. Sorry.
So I decided to start the show, and then when he was ready, he would come in here. So that's why the show started out a bit odd, because I was kind of like, okay, I gotta start it.
Gotcha.
So I kind of just started it. So apologies for the weird start to the show, but yes.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your patience. But anyway, so we're going to talk about types of psychic abilities now, because I've explained sort of the basis of the spiritual side, where the scientific side is whatever is the evidence part of it, and
which is very difficult to collect.
Yeah, and then the spiritual side of it, which was more psychic abilities and stuff like that, and I said stuff like that everyone is born with it. However, you have to unlock it. Like, everyone is capable, but it's extremely difficult to actually unlock. Like, very, very rarely can you unlock it. Very few people can unlock it. And the theory is that it takes some sort of traumatic event to really help it come
Took it right out of my thoughts. Yes.
Yes. So I mean, do you want to elaborate on that, or do you want to?
Yeah, I mean that's fine. I would like to. There are individuals in the world that are different than others, and that's one thing I need the audience to understand. Not only trauma, or what we know later as the PTSD syndrome, which actually post-traumatic stress disorder is a disorder, but it comes in many different styles or different symptoms. But there are people who are born different, okay? Some of them have, especially as children, you start noticing things about, they have the ability sometimes to move things by thought. Often they can make people feel positive or more accepted, more warm, and then there are those people that are the opposite, where they really scare the crap out of you.
Yeah.
But as I said, I mean, all human beings possess the ability, because we all have a soul. We all have an energy about us, and it's called the aura. Okay, and that is our connection to the universe. Now, as Josh stated, it's rare, and those people that are activated, let's just say that, often have multiple traumatic experiences.
Yep.
Now, just to give you a little background about me, about less than a month after I was born, I had a very traumatic experience where I almost died in a fire. Now, I'm from Germany originally, and I was not supposed to survive that, but I did.
You probably were told, you don't remember, I assume, because you were just a baby.
Well, I didn't know until I was 8 years old why I had scars on my body.
Right.
Okay. And, it's really tiny scars, considering that the entire room was burnt to a crisp.
Yeah. Except
my mattress. Now, in 1971, I'm old, they didn't have fire retardant mattresses. And the back wall behind my crib.
Mattresses now are fire retardant?
Most of them, yeah.
Really?
They have the fire retardant material.
Oh, okay.
So, moving forward, that was my first incident, and I've had several other near-death experiences, including car accidents, and then an incident in the Marine Corps. I fell approximately 50 feet, survived that. I was injured. I mean, you don't get away without being injured. There's always a cost to a trauma.
Right.
I've seen people die in front of me, and those are traumatic events. And most of those occurred in my youth, and then I had a few things that happened to me as an adult. Having said that, I started noticing things even as a child. I suffered from what you now call ADHD, which used to be known as hyperactivity disorder. Very common amongst people who have special gifts, okay, and very misunderstood by the community. All right, you have to understand, if you have a special child like that, a lot of parents have difficulty raising them because they always think that it's just your imagination, and people see gremlins, they speak to dead spirits. Children are so perceptive of the psychic realm, and often adults tell them that it's not there. And
exactly, that's called, when you're younger, and people say, kids have a huge imagination or whatever. It's because when you're younger, you're not told about the real world. You're not told to not believe in all this stuff. And so,
you're told not to believe in it.
No, when you're younger, you're not told that yet. As when you're born, you're so innocent that your mind is basically still open to all that stuff.
Yep.
So your mind is basically still able to perceive all that stuff. For instance, if a child has claims to have an imaginary friend or whatever, parents take note. It could mean that you have a possible spirit.
Actually, you're absolutely correct. In fact, it's usually a relative.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
Unless you're in a haunted place. And then children are more... Although it's funny, children tend to be the target of hauntings. However, it's the adult that suffer more than the child itself. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's kind of weird if I'm going to say that, but a child's energy is much stronger than an adult's. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if kids only knew their power from the time they're born until their time that they're told no, okay?
And it's also one of the reasons why it seems like children are more the the target of hauntings is because they are the people that are most susceptible, most weak and innocent to to
the attacks.
The attacks, exactly. Now, you're once you grow up and you're in the process of growing up, and your parents say, oh, it's just an imaginary friend, he's not actually there or whatever. You start believing because you're a kid. Obviously they have a higher authority. So you believe it, and as you grow up, they tell you they if you're listening to this show, then you hopefully are old enough to know this. They start telling you that, like, Santa Claus, Saint Nick,
real.
The Easter Bunny, all of them don't currently physically exist in this world. Now, there was a person that Santa Claus is based off of. However, he died long time ago. So
I'm thinking it was around the 13th or 12th century.
Yes, and he was known as Saint Nicholas from Turkey.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that in like a Christmas episode or something.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yes, when your parents tell you that kind of stuff, and that
or often they just dismiss it.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And often they say, hey, they don't even tell you that any of the true stories behind it. They just say, hey, none of these exist or whatever, and like your mind is your mind believes it, and then your mind is completely just shut out from all of this imagination and all this magic stuff, and suddenly your mind is just shut out from any imagination, and you grow up and it's just you're completely shut out from these other worlds that you used to be able to believe in. Or
I don't mean to interrupt. One thing that is important for people to understand, well, everybody has the ability to use their special gifts.
Right.
Whether it's telekinesis, whether it's, psychic abilities such as reading minds, or, like in my case, energetic healing.
Yeah.
Okay? Those abilities often are inherited.
Yep.
And I'll give you an example. My mother, who in her youth was very wild, and she was running, with motorcycles down the streets of Offenbach, where I'm from, in Frankfurt.
In Germany.
In Frankfurt, Germany. And ever since she was little, she'd see people, but they weren't there. Okay? And as she got older, she saw more and more people that weren't there, meaning that these were people that were dead.
Mm-hmm.
And they would appear to her, and it wasn't until... And my grandfather used to dismiss it. He didn't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
And Oma, too. She didn't... Opa and Oma,
Yeah.
Grandpa and Grandma. And the one thing that it kind of changed for my mom was in 2003, after my grandmother passed away.
Yeah.
My mom went to Germany to take care of him, my grandfather. And they were at the Friedhof, which is a cemetery, okay? And my grandfather's at my grandmother's grave, and my mom's right behind her, and she looks, and she goes, hey, Opa, look, there are people waving at you. And he goes, I don't see anybody. I said, they're right in front of us, she goes, okay? And she goes, describe them. And she described them, and it turned out to be individuals he knew from the 1950s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He was in shock. He's like, wow. She described them to a T.
Yeah.
And she even described the clothing they were wearing. And my mom even said it looked odd because it looked out of place. Okay?
Right.
And after that, my grandfather started thinking, like, maybe there is a God. You know what I mean? Because after the Holocaust, he didn't want anything to do with God.
Yeah, and what was it? Your grandfather?
My grandfather.
His grandfather was unfortunately an atheist. After the Holocaust.
No, I don't blame him.
Yeah. But anyway, we're just going to get into a little bit of the types of psychic abilities, and keep in mind that like one person might have like a ton of these abilities inside them, or they may be able to do multiple ones of these abilities. Not one ability is limited to just one person, or not one person is limited to just one ability. Like you can do multiple ones of these, I know for a fact. So apportation is basically the materialization or disappearance or teleportation of an object. Now, I don't know anybody that can do this. I've never seen it before.
That's like alchemy.
I know it's pretty up there in psychic abilities.
Yes.
Like I said, I don't 100% believe in every single one of these simply because some of these I've never seen done before.
And a lot of those are also from a different era.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean,
Merlin could do that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And we'll Merlin is another one that we'll talk about. Because I believe he's in one of the topics that we're going to talk about.
Sure.
Anyway, and then we have an aura reading. What David was talking about with an aura. It's perception of energy fields surrounding people, places, and things. It's basically the energy that surrounds. We're not talking about EMF readings. We're not talking about the energy that's in the air. We're talking about the energy that surrounds the soul.
And of course, we call that the soul.
That's what I said.
Yeah, but you said surrounds the soul.
Oh well, right, yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to correct you, but the aura itself, I discovered this a few years back. Is many cultures have the aura as a small little area in the heart or in the chest, right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes in the head, depending on what belief system you believe in. And then as I was journeying through life, trying to figure out the universe, I discovered that, wait a minute, the aura is the soul, because that's our consciousness.
Yeah.
So.
And, I mean, a lot of people might think, like, well, what does an aura look like? And I do know people that do have the ability to see the aura. And basically, what they have described it as, it's a
sphere.
It's like, a sphere of colors that sort of surround your body, and each color kind of represents a different aspect of your personality.
Or your level of spirituality.
Exactly. Yeah.
The one thing is like as a pranic healer, okay, you can literally comb out, because prana is also life force, okay.
Yep.
And there are ways of removing illness or anything that's a negativity from a certain aura.
Exactly.
And you can literally, it's like combing. Like
Yep.
you have your hands and you're going up and down this area. You can literally feel it.
Yeah. And after I get done with telling you about these psychic abilities, then David is going to explain exactly what he does, because the aura comes majorly into play with what he does. Mm-hmm. Automatic writing is writing produced without the conscious thought. Let's say you go into a trance or something, and you're it's basically where you're in a trance and you're told to write something, and you just start writing something, and then you wake up and it's like you're like, I wrote that.
That's actually called channeling.
Right. Well,
you channel whatever energy comes to you.
Exactly. Like I said,
automatic writing. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, each of these psychic abilities, not one psychic ability is limited to just one person,
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then we have astral projection or mental projection,
mm-hmm.
and it is an out of body experience in which an astral body becomes separate from the physical body. Now, David is capable of doing this.
I've done it.
Yeah.
And it's first time I did it was kind of freaky, but it was so beautiful. So
exactly.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of these things, like some of these David didn't even know that he could do, but I encouraged him to try it.
High five.
For instance, remote viewing. I mean, remote healing. David had never done it before, but then we had a case for a woman down in Southern America.
No, in Houston.
Oh, in Houston,
in
Texas,
that's
what it was. Yeah. And anyway, I said, well, can you do remote healing? He's like, I've never done that before. Well, can he try it? He tried it. He was actually pretty accurate.
Yeah, and she was impressed.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, like I said, some of these David didn't even know that he could do, but I encouraged him to try it, and he is a rock star at them.
Now I am, yeah.
Bilocation is being in multiple places at the same time. Another thing that David can do, in a sense, because you can be physically in one place, and you can also spiritually be in one place.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really, and the description of doesn't say like, hey, you can be spiritually in two different places or physically in two different places. Technically, if you're physically,
I'll take it back. I've actually done multiple in one session. That incident that happened with me and with Yoko.
Yeah.
Remember, I had two other people in Germany that I was working on at the same time, and I could see them. And all of a sudden, I had to go to Japan.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, something else happened.
Yeah. And then we have clairvoyance. Now, Clairvoyance is perception outside the known human species. It's being able to see spirits and other things that others can't see. You basically have the ability to see things in a different dimension. You have the ability to see you have this ability to see multiple dimensions at once.
That's happened to me twice in my lifetime, and the one I remember the most was I was actually doing a Native American ceremony, and I could see the people in the tent, in the lodge, sweat lodge, and then all of a sudden, that Polaroid thing, you take the little images and you put it in the slide, and then it goes in front of the light screen, and then you see an image on the wall. All of a sudden, it was like that, another dimension right in front of me, and it was so vivid and so like, wow, that it actually took me back. Like, I was actually shocked. At how vivid it was.
Right. And then we have death warning. It's a vision of a living person prior to his or her death. That it's rather creepy to think about. I don't know anybody that,
Okay, well, let's talk about this. Have you ever had a dream where your teeth fell
out? Quite a bit.
Okay. And after that event, did people pass away somewhere that you know?
I don't remember.
Well,
I quite often have dreams like that where my teeth fall out.
All of them?
Not
all of a
sudden
you're
them.
Like holding them all in your
Not
mouth?
Not all of them, but certain ones.
Okay. Well, and that means something, but on two separate occasions I had a dream of my teeth falling out. The first time my grandmother passed away was in a month.
Okay.
Okay. And my mom just freaked. I take it back. She didn't pass away, but someone else we knew passed away in the family.
Okay.
And what it was is the teeth were completely white. Clean teeth just fell out. And then the next time, several teeth fell out and they were rotten.
Okay.
I mean, someone within the circle of your life is going to die, and that's when my grandmother passed away.
Okay. Well, yeah, there was one. Usually it's where like a tooth falls out. One time I remember it's where one of my back teeth, like one of my larger teeth, molars or whatever, kind of like snapped into pieces and like pieces broke off and fell out, but it still stayed intact.
In a dream.
Yep, in a dream.
Interesting.
And then there's divination, which is gaining insight into a situation, most commonly through a ritual.
Usually,
we're not going to talk about all these, just so you people know. Dowsing is the ability to locate objects, sometimes using a tool called a dowsing rod. Now, this is it's not really a psychic ability, it's more of a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool.
Because all you do is just take two tools that are known. You can make these with clothes hangers, for crying out loud.
But they have to be metal, they can't be plastic.
Metal clothes hangers. So it's not really a psychic ability, it's just dowsing rods.
It's another way you can actually find water, too.
Right, empathic intuitive is feeling the emotions of other people or spirits. Now, I have been told that David definitely has it. I've been told that I have it, however, I don't know how to use it. I don't know how to use it, and I don't notice it a whole lot, so I don't really care too much about it.
Yeah.
And if you were to ask me, being that I've been told that I have it, but I don't really care too much that I have it because I don't really use it or control it. It's not really that important to me. I would say that it's more of, most of the time, it's more of a curse than a gift to me.
Because it's a lot of emotions.
It's a lot of emotions that you have to handle. Like if somebody like for instance, if I witness like people having like a fight next to me or something, I can feel all that energy just pouring over me, and it gets really uncomfortable. Overwhelming. Yeah. Because you're set that energy, and then you walk away kind of like super anxious because you're like your body's trying to like process all that energy, and it's just like, okay.
Well, I hear you.
Yeah. Energy medicine. It's healing by channeling a form of energy. One of the things that David does that he will talk about. Then we have faith healing, diagnosing or curing diseases using religious devotion. One of David's things. Some of these are separated but are relatively kind of the same thing.
Similar, yeah.
Yeah. Levitation, bodily levitation and flying. God, I wish I could do that.
Well, I used to do that in my sleep. Like I would
I do
dream
that
about
all
it.
the time
Yeah,
in my
so-
sleep. And we'll talk about sleep and sleep interpretation in another episode sometime because I love that topic. I freaking love flying in my sleep. I love.
You know
doing
what's
that.
funny? I haven't done it in a while. I think once in the last 2.5 years.
Oh, I do it like all the time.
I'm
like
jealous.
literally all that you do to fly in your dreams is you like tense up your muscles, kind of like you put your arms like this and you tense up your muscles, and the more you tense them up, the higher you go.
Is that how you do it? That's exactly how I do it.
This is how I do it. Like
Yeah, it's like a just one movement, and all of a sudden you're everywhere.
exactly, it's just like you tense up your muscles, kind of like it's like
You're creeping me out right
You're
now.
like this. You're like.
Yep, and you levitate.
Yeah, and then it's like the more that you let go of your muscles, the lower you go. It's like it's kind of like, and then it's like
Interesting. How
like that.
Do you like fly? Like for instance, as a child,
Yeah.
I used to go down the stairwell that I had, in Offenbach,
Mm-hmm.
and in my dreams I would just glide down the stairwell. It was like
Yep.
a feeling of freedom.
Like sometimes to fly, most of the time I just go like this.
Yeah.
But sometimes I also just run and then I go like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's funny is
I just dive and I just start flying.
and again, that's the same as me. I'm a little impressed and taken back because I didn't know that's how you dreamt. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So then we have mediumship is communicating with spirits. That's probably the most common name for like what everybody knows is
For those that are honest.
Yeah. And then we have a precognition or a precognition, aka premonition.
Premonition.
And there's a movie on this with Sandra Bullock.
Mm-hmm.
It's where the
That
perception.
is a good one. Yeah, I've
Yes.
seen that one.
The perception of events before they happen. And
My mom has that.
yeah. And then there's psychic surgery, which is the removal of diseased body tissue via an incision that heals immediately afterwards.
Those are very questionable. I've seen them, and there's quite a bit of fraud behind that.
Yeah.
Where it's more of a show, and they have.
Right.
I mean, it's quite amazing, and then of course, the power of suggestion is very powerful,
Yeah.
and so most of the people feel okay at first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This next ability, there is 2 iconic movies behind it that I know of that are like there's really popular movies. Psychokinesis, the ability to manipulate matter by the power of thought. There's 2 very, very popular movies behind it. Carrie and Matilda.
Well, actually, yeah, and there's also something called that. What was it called now? Snow.
Snow?
What's it called?
Huh?
Back in the late '80s.
Oh, this is why I wouldn't know.
Yeah, it was actually really good. It was this kid that was like an albino, and I think it was called Snow, and he was hidden by his grandparents because he was so different, and he had the ability to move things and heal, and he was powerful.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't remember the title. So
Right. Psychometry, obtaining information about a person or object, usually by touching or concentrating on the object or a related object. You have some of that too, I would say.
Yeah.
Pyrokinesis is the manipulation of fire.
Fire. Yeah. Fire.
Remote viewing, gathering of information at a distance. You
No.
can do that.
Yes.
Um,
It's difficult. Now, just to elaborate on that for a minute, the United States and the Soviet Union understood remote viewing very well. They actually had entire programs dedicated to try to get, basically it's psychic spying, what it was, and surprisingly they were pretty damn accurate.
Awesome. Retrocognition is the perception of past events. Scrying is the use of an item to view events at a distance or in the future. And telepathy is the transfer of thoughts or emotion in either direction. Now, we can do that a lot. We don't realize it a lot, but we can do that a lot. And so,
Well, yeah.
Steph and I,
Well, we know each other so well,
people who are very in tune with each other.
and who've been around each other. I mean, your energy
Exactly.
has to mix.
Exactly. Now I'm just gonna quickly finish up just talking about that, and then David is going to talk about his abilities.
I'll do my best.
So basically, how Kakana Paranormal Research Team uses mediums, how David and I's team uses mediums is, for instance, we did a case out in central Wisconsin in July of 2013. The claims was that a man was visiting the client's child in his sleep. After the investigation, I did have an idea. I asked a psychic medium who, if they could tell me anything about the house or the spirit. And they described to me, they described things for a bit. And the two things that stood out were that the man's name was George, and that she saw him wearing World War II clothing. And now I had to see if I could prove this through research, because number one, I had to prove her claims through scientific research, or I couldn't present it to the client. Number two, it'd be pretty awesome to prove.
Very, very awesome.
So, I went to the Register of Deeds to research history on the property, and I went through past house owners, and what we found was just awesome. One of the past owners, his name was actually George, which was pretty awesome. So basically, illusion of the spiritual side, after doing a bit more research, we discovered that George was a World War II veteran, and we found out which cemetery George was buried in, so we went to pay our respects. Now, is George the one that was haunting the little boy? We'll never know for sure, but being that so many things fit together for this investigation, it's probably the best possibility. So, David is now going to talk about what he does. And I'm also going, as he's talking about what he does, I'm going to play an audio clip for you guys.
Cool. Well, let's begin with what I do. My hobby and my passion is healing people as best as I can to my best ability. And how I do it, and I've really never been taught how to do this, so it was a part already. But I kind of let my some people will call it a spirit guy, but I let my imagination take care of it. And what happened is one day I had this energetic field come out of my hand. Okay, and at first I started as maybe just playing basketball. Okay, and I would take the ball, I would take this energy ball, and I'd throw it, and all of a sudden I felt something hit me back, and I'm like, "Ooh, okay, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And being a compassionate human being that I started with my mom, she had a very bad knee, okay? It was always swelling up, and sometimes it gave her a hard time walking. And so she was my first experiment. I said, Mom, let me try this. I'm going to help you, I hope. And so I'm starting to work, and I could actually feel the injury. I could feel where the heat was coming. I pinpointed the area that she injured, and within 5 minutes, her leg started, the swelling started going down. Within 15 minutes, not only was the swelling gone, but her pain was no more there, okay? And that lasted a good year before the next time I had to actually do something. So finding interest in this newfound ability, I started taking other people to work on them, friends and even acquaintances. And at that time, I was also studying Lakota spirituality, so I found that to be very interesting. I love the Native Americans. I think they have a very good ideology, especially when it comes to nature. And there's a lot of medicine that comes with the Native American, and that's commonly used, that word, is medicine. I was doing that, and at the same time I was also studying martial arts. Now, in total, I studied about 15 years of martial arts. It helped me focus, but I also did Tai Chi, so it allowed me to really project my energy. And that, of course, helped me. Now, let's move forward, okay? I have one little Lazarus story, and then I'm going to continue. And what it was is I was married, I had two daughters, and I have two daughters, but they were really little back then, and we had a goldfish, okay? And one morning we woke up, and the goldfish was upside down, okay? It was pretty much dead, had his guts actually hanging out. So my daughters are like crying, and they're saying, Daddy, Daddy, do your magic, do your magic. And I'm like, I wasn't sure if I could do this. I said, okay, I'll try, kids, but I can't make any guarantees. So all I did is I pointed one finger in the direction of the bowl where the goldfish was. And at first nothing was happening, but all of a sudden I noticed, and my kids noticed, especially my oldest daughter, that there was a little bit of a fog, a mist creating on the area I focused on. And so I said, okay, this was very encouraging. So I kept on focusing, and I was breathing, and I could feel the energy go in there, and I could feel it going into this beautiful little goldfish we had. And all of a sudden, a fin started twitching. Now, mind you, this thing was upside down. We don't know how long. Okay.
Right. And
so the fin was twitching, and the girl's like, "Daddy, you're doing it, you're doing it." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this," And so I'm like, really, now I have two fingers just focusing on this poor thing. All of a sudden, it turned around, upside down, and started swimming. Now, mind you, it was injured by the other fish, had part of its intestines hanging out. It lived another 3 years.
For those wondering what the Lazarus effect is, it's basically the ability to bring something back to life.
And it was based on Lazarus, which he was dead for 3 days. Jesus came there and he brought him back to life. So
there's a video on it there's a movie about it that's slightly exaggerated. It's more of a horror movie that because it's like
based on an experiment.
Yeah, they bring it back. They bring a woman back to life, and then she's like this zombie that continually becomes eviler and eviler because it's theorized that the soul didn't come back to the body. They just brought the body back to life, the soul didn't come back or whatever. Yep. But it's on Netflix, or it should be on Netflix. The last time I watched it, The Lazarus Effect with Olivia Wilde.
Now let me continue for a moment, because we have a clip that you guys need to hear. The last part that I want to discuss is since that incident with the goldfish and all the other incidences. In total, I've worked on over 700 people, including some professional football players, wealthy people, poor people, and stuff like that. And of course, I have the other abilities such as sensing spirits.
And the thing to know, David does not. Although donations are accepted and appreciated, David does not charge for doing this because it's what he does. It's like, it basically feels like it's what his purpose is.
Yes, my purpose is because there are a lot of people that can't afford to pay. And why should I punish a human being that's suffering? I don't like people suffering.
Exactly.
All right, why don't we play our clip?
All right, so basically this is scientific evidence.
Yes.
That basically puts proof behind David's abilities. And we'll play this right now.
Something's over there. Are you near us? Oh, energy. Are you okay? Are you mad that we're in here?
Now, if you heard, I'll play it once more, but if you heard that, David goes, "Are you near us?" And then all of a sudden you hear somebody say, "Yes." And then all of a sudden David goes, "Whoa, energy." Like he confirms that.
Well, I got a big chill when that happened.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it was like a, whoa.
Now I'm going to play it once more.
Something's over there. Are you near us? Oh, energy. Are you okay? Are you mad that we're in here?
And now before we continue, I'm just going to quickly play one more EVP that is probably the most impressive EVP we've heard to date. That we've captured.
Do you know what year it is?
So in case you didn't hear that was my voice asking what year is it, and there was a voice that answered May 31st. The interesting part is that I asked what year it was, not the day. However, it was May 31st that day.
That was it. That was our. It was actually at the Kakana Library
in Kakana, Wisconsin.
Yep, and it was May 31st, and this thing answered us the day, not the year.
Yeah. So that's it for the show today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, sorry for the odd beginning. We'll see you next week at 7 o'clock with a brand new episode.
God bless.